Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode, actually the first episode of Songs That Made the Movie on the Scratch a Track podcast, presented by the Dude and Grim Show. I am the Dude.
I'm Grim. It's a new format. Today we're talking about Pulp Fiction. I mean, how else would you start it out? I can't think of really a more...
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
Really iconic movie soundtrack. I mean, this came out Definitely. At an age where we were really far too young to watch it based on the content of the movie, but we did nonetheless. And It was just one of those ones where you just listen to the soundtrack, and the soundtrack could stand on its own because it was such an interesting mix of music. The surf music, of course, stands out.
Sure.
Which I know that you dug pretty well into this, dude, and I like
a little bit
Quentin Tarantino's description of how he viewed the surf music in the context of this movie, or in general, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because when I was doing research for this, I found a couple of interviews, and one thing that he said is he actually, when has ideas for movies and wants to start writing and whatnot, he'll actually go through his records and play music and try to get the spirit of the movie through the music that he's listening to.
Which is kind of, I feel like that comes through. I mean, think of some of his other movies. Absolutely. Like Reservoir Dogs had an amazing soundtrack. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, dude.
Oh, fuck, dude. So good, man. Yeah. I mean, dude, the Kill Bill movies with the 5, 6, 7, 8s doing their, I mean, come on, it's some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction were
the standouts.
Obviously a big introduction to him, and music was such a huge part of those movies and the soundtracks. I remember when I bought the soundtrack to Pulp Fiction was actually a double disc or a special edition.
Oh, you got the special edition one?
It wasn't the special edition of Pulp Fiction. It was they sold Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction together as like a double thing. So that was kind of cool.
I like what you've done here.
I liked both of those movies a lot.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, this is, not only the movie itself takes from just so many different genres and styles and everything, but the soundtrack and the music that is used in it does as well.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, if before this movie came out, if I took the songs that are in this movie and I put them in a list, I don't think anyone would ever be like, oh, well, yeah, these would obviously belong in a soundtrack or a movie, or even like a movie like this. I mean, I guess you could say, okay, some of the surf songs and whatnot, but I don't think anyone would ever make that connection because it's such an eclectic mix of songs.
Yeah. I really, one thing that really has fascinated me in listening to some of the interviews is Tarantino's kind of description as to how he views the surf music, which he views it like rock and roll spaghetti Western music. And I get it. It's real. Like it sounds big because there's so much reverb used and there's like some twang on it. I mean, and it can be slow or fast, and it kind of, there are definitely similarities there. And I really like the use of it. And I mean, I guess if that's the case, you got to just start off with Miserlou, which there are other versions of Miserlou out there by Dick Dale and the Deltones. Okay. Now they don't have the punch that that version has. I mean, I had heard, I've read about Dick Dale, who is not only the self-proclaimed, but other people also call him the king of the surf guitar. But I mean, dude, he has a song called The King of the Surf Guitar about himself. And it's like, listen to the king of the surf guitar.
Good for him.
Yeah. He owned it.
Shit,
yeah.
Dude.
And he did. Yeah. But his thing was picking, which you can hear how fast he picks it. And I don't know if there's any truth to this, but they used to say that he would play, because a pick is really just a thin piece of plastic for those who aren't guitar players that you pluck the strings with. And people would, and if you're playing that fast, you're going to want to use a thin pick because it's got a little give and you can really go back and forth without pushing too hard on the string or the pick. And I had heard that he used to like melt picks, is what they used to say. That he would like the picks would start to just kind of wither up and melt. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but you know, the 6 string, the low strings on the guitar are like, they're wound, so they're not smooth, right? So that's why you get those scratches when you move it. So you theoretically could.
Right. I got it. Well, dude, I love the way this song is used during the opening credits. I mean, you start off and you have the scene with, you know, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny just sitting in a diner, and they're talking back and forth just about robberies and things that they've done and all that. And then, you know, impulsively just decide, well, hey, let's just do it like right now, right here. Okay, cool.
I do like that. It's like this place.
Yeah, this place. Yeah. And so they do it right there, but we don't actually get to see it. It's, you know, they tell everybody to get down and, you know, any of you, I'll execute every
mother bleeping last one of you.
And then there's a sharp pause, cut, you know, freeze frame, and then that just comes in and the credits roll. And the first time I saw that, I mean, I was a kid, but
but you're like, this is going to be a badass movie.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah. But, you know, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it was like, what is going on here? Because even just that sort of sequence of, I mean, in a typical movie, what are you going to do? Okay, you're going to show the whole robbery. You're not going to stop it like right in the middle, you know, do an opening credit sequence and then cut to a completely different scene. And it's just so jarring that, you know, this is something different that we're about to get into.
Yep.
And then what's cool is, and I know you know this, is what it kind of goes into is the song plays, and then all of a sudden you hear like the radio tuner, like, and then it goes right into Jungle Boogie. You finish the credit sequence out, and then you go into the Royale with Cheese.
Yeah, and they're just riding the car talking
with Travolta and Samuel Jackson. Yeah. And I mean, one of the most, I mean, dude, I could probably watch that scene, the start of that scene through when they go into the apartment, where, you know, I could watch that over and over again. I mean, just amazing, not only amazing dialogue, but the way it's delivered between those guys is just...
It just seems like how people would actually speak.
It's unbelievable. It's so good, especially those types of dudes.
Yeah, so. And I don't want to harp too much on Miserlou other than it's an amazing song. But one thing that always stands out to me is if you listen to the way the piano is played at the end with the twinkling and those big runs up and down. I mean, it is
remember that.
Gorgeous.
It is very good. It's
so anyways, sure. But then it goes, into Jungle Boogie. And I think that's, and I don't know if you hear any music again in the film until they go into the bar where Marcellus is talking to Bruce Willis. And for some reason, like, let's stay together. It like maybe doesn't even make sense in the context of like lyrics or anything relating to the scene, but the feel of that song and the way that bar looks, like everything about it is perfect.
Dude, you know, the whole thing of like image and sound in the way they play off each other. And Tarantino has said that too. He wasn't necessarily worried about, you know, matching music and songs of an era, at least in this movie, of an era to like a certain scene. It's like, how does the music complement each scene and what's going on and the activity that's going on within it? And it is perfect. I mean,
well, and I think sometimes he said that he does it like in an ironic way, which we'll get to in another very let's say gripping scene later on in the movie.
Oh God!
But I remember, I think in the interview he said he originally thought about using My Sharona in that scene because because of the irony, because it's so off-putting as to what's going on. But we'll get there.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
But
I think you're right with "Let's Stay Together."
And just the feel of it is right. And every time I hear that song now, I'm looking for the Band-Aid on the back of somebody's neck.
Well, that scene in itself is so interesting because you cut to that scene and it's just Bruce Willis, and you're just hearing Bruce. You see Bruce Willis's face. You hear the song in the background, and you hear Marcellus speaking. And it's like that for a good minute to maybe a minute and a half, which is such a weird thing. Like, you don't.
It's
do
like
that
one of those
movies.
reaction videos on YouTube.
Exactly.
You know, where you're not even seeing what they're watching, just the reaction.
The great thing is, though, is it's just like Bruce Willis. I mean, it could be a freeze frame. He is basically just like sitting there.
And he has a look on his face where he is like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here.
Pretty much. He's like, I can't wait to screw you over.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I'm going to find myself one smiling motherfucker for sure. That's pretty much what he's saying.
My ass goes down.
Yes. I have no problem with that, Mr. Wallace.
Say it.
So dude, let's stay together. One thing that I noticed when I was kind of looking at the track list and some of these songs, now I don't have like the charts up in front of me. You know, Jungle Boogie was, I think, probably somewhat
that
of
was a hit for sure.
Right?
Cool in the Gang. Yeah.
And I mean, Son of a Preacher Man is well known. I think
Dude, Let's Stay Together. That's maybe Al Green's biggest song.
It could be. There's a couple other ones, but yeah,
I mean, that's like a really huge song for him. I mean,
it is. But I feel like these songs, when this movie came out in '94, I feel like these are songs that people kind of forgot about.
Oh yeah,
and it's like all of a sudden Tarantino's like, hey, I'm gonna bring these back.
and that's what I like. So fast forward to the next real scene to where Travolta's buying heroin from Eric Stoltz's character, and it's busting surfboards. And I mean, it's cool because the one thing I like about it is you get all this variance in music, but you keep coming back to the surf music. You know, and that even goes to the next scene where he's like, is it cool if I shoot up here? He shoots up and he's driving in his car, obviously just stoned out of his mind. And the thing that I like is, the road behind him almost deliberately doesn't even try to look like he's really driving the car on that road, because it's like his trip. Like he's just kind of fucking out there.
It's his festival,
you know? And so then what's that one? That's, Bullwinkle Part 2.
I think, it's Bullwinkle Part 2, I believe. Yeah. And
it just that kind of it's in a minor key, and it has the right sound for what he's doing. Totally. You know, it's trippy, it's kind of dark.
Yeah, no, it really is, and it's an amazingly when he opens the black case and he does, it's so intricate, and we're getting all these close ups to see the needle come in and then you see
and he pulls the little blood back.
Yeah, it's just so well done, and it really fits the song and everything in the mood. So just like he was saying earlier, he wants it to really fit the mood, and I think that works very well. It does.
And another thing that I caught from the interview that I guess I never even really thought about this before, but there's songs that are going on in the movie, and then there's songs that are like the soundtrack. And that's so true. Like when they go to Jungle Boogie and stuff, like that's in the movie. They're in the car. Radio. It's on the radio. But I think he specifically said in that interview that this song is like a soundtrack song, which is like deliberately meant to not be like it's on the radio. It's just it's like a separate entity of itself.
Sure.
You know.
Well, and then there's, you know, I guess another, what you would call the soundtrack song. So moving progressively in the movie, we have Son of a Preacher Man. And that's when, you know, Travolta gets up, or, Vincent Vega gets up to pick up Mia Wallace. And Son of a Preacher Man's playing, and he gets inside. And it's just such a funny song to me to fit that scene, because it's, you know, the song Son of a Preacher Man. But Mia Wallace is like sitting in the back room doing lines of blow, while she's watching him walk around the house on video camera, and he fixes himself a cocktail. It's just such an interesting contrast. Maybe not even a contrast, because it's just very interesting to me. I thought it was cool.
But there's a similarity to me to that scene and Let's Stay Together. Both of those songs have this smoothness about them that somehow fit that mood. And I don't I don't necessarily know how, but they're both really smooth. They're not jarring. It's just, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I do.
There's just something about it.
Well, and the cool thing is during that scene a little bit, people will notice in Tarantino movies, he's never usually in a rush to do anything. He has no problem taking his time. That's why some of his movies are a little longer. He'll let things kind of play out and happen. So this song is playing, and it's showing her watching him, and it's really just, there's no dialogue. I mean, she invites him in and says, go make a drink over there by the two African fellows, which are like little statues or whatever. He goes, he makes the drink, and we just kind of see the process, and visually we're seeing what's happening going back and forth. And there's really no dialogue, but the song is very prevalent in the scene. Like that's what we're actually like hearing. So it's very cool, but it's not like, I never got the impression that was necessarily the song that was playing like when he walked in. I think that's just really more us for the audience, but it works. But then there's the scene where we go to Jackrabbit Slim's. And that is in the movie, very much so. Is in the movie. Now I think I read this, and I think you know it too. There's the main song, the initial song when they walk into Jackrabbit Slim's isn't on the initial soundtrack. It is on the deluxe edition. And it's what's the name?
Ray, Rumble.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's such a classic song. And I know we were talking about this a little offline, but there's a documentary out there called It Might Get Loud, and it's about guitar players. And in this documentary, it's they're talking to Jack White, Jimmy Page, and the Edge. And each of them, you know, they ask each of them, like, what was this defining moment where, like, you heard some song and you were like, this is what I have to do. And so, of course, Jack White played, I think, a Sun House record, but like a very old blues record, which makes perfect sense based on what he does. But when they talk to Jimmy Page, he goes and he pulls the 45 of fucking Link Wray's Rumble and puts it on. And he, you know, he talks about how, like, this was one of the first songs to really have like almost a distorted, really loud guitar. You know, and it does. It's incredible how simplistic the song is, but Rumble is right with the way the bass carries and just the guitar, and at the end they slowly turn up the vibrato on the amplifier. So, you know, by the end of the song, it's like all.
Well, and it's such a cool part of the movie too, because again, just like we had in, you know, the Wallace's house, where there's a scene, the music is what's in the forefront, and then we're seeing action in front of us. This song is playing while, you know, Mia goes and gets the table, but then we kind of follow Vincent around
the other way,
the whole other way, and then she calls out to him, and that again, that's just Tarantino just kind of like letting things happen, and we're just kind of floating along with them. It's explore the space. Get that cowbell, boy. Well,
and then there's that guy who's like supposed to be impersonating like a young Ricky Nelson, and I think that's I don't know if that's a Ricky Nelson song that he's playing. But anyways, he's up there playing. Then of course the iconic scene where they're dancing to Chuck Berry, You Never Can Tell. I mean, that's
so good, man. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. I mean, after that, there's lots
Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, which is, that's kind of interesting foreshadowing before she kind of ODs, right?
Oh, yeah. And that is just such a cool scene. Again, that's where the music is kind of in the scene, because she gets home, he goes to the bathroom,
but she plays that on the reel-to-reel,
which is kind of cool, kind of badass.
And right? I thought that was interesting too, because I would have expected when she put it on the reel-to-reel, I would have figured that it would have been the original Neil Diamond version, but it was the Urge Overkill cover of it, which is kind of cool.
Is very and dude, man, I dig their version of it. It's got some sexiness to it. And again, it's another one of those scenes where he's in the bathroom. He's kind of like, they cut back and forth.
Oh,
right?
and he's talking himself out of.
He's talking to himself like, hey, you're not going to do what you want to do here. And she just starts going through his stuff. She snorts what she thinks is blow, and it's not. And then all hell breaks loose. And we're just on this whole other roller coaster wild ride of a scene, which is definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Then I think we jump ahead a little bit. I mean, not to go through maybe all the songs, but I think the next one I wanted to get to was Counting Flowers.
On the Wall. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, Counting Flowers on the Wall, which is just, I'd never heard that song before, but it's such a fun song. And
it is.
Watching the movie the last time I saw it, it was so interesting. What stuck with me that I never noticed before was it's the scene. So spoiler alert, but Bruce Willis has just killed John Travolta in the bathroom. He gets in this.
If you haven't seen this by this point, that's fucking on you.
Sorry. But he gets in this little Honda hatchback and he's driving down the street. He gets in and this song is on the radio again. So it's like in the scene, and he gets this little smile on his face. He's like, oh, cool. I like the,
like he's out, like he made it.
Yep. And so he's driving, goes down a couple blocks, and then all of a sudden he stops, and Marcellus walks across the street, and they recognize each other. And right when their eyes pretty much connect, like right at that moment when he pulls up and they kind of see each other, the lines from the song is, "It's good to see you. I must go. I know I look a fright." And then that's when, the impact happens and everything. But the way those lyrics just like matched up with that scene, I just thought was perfect. Dude, it was very cool.
The lyrics in this song are actually amazing because it sounds so happy-go-lucky, but it's like kind of like playing solitaire till dawn with a deck of 51. But dude, smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. That is the line where you're like, you win. That's incredible.
I want that life.
Yeah. Don't tell me I got nothing to do.
I got nothing to do.
But you'd start. I mean, if you were watching Captain Kangaroo, get some red apples, right?
Oh, some red apples.
No filter.
No filters.
But then of course you go into a really dark, weird place with the whole gimp business. But dude, Comanche is just like that just like raunchy sax solo really kind of
sums it up, man, because it's dirty, and some dirty stuff is going on behind that closed door that personally I don't need to see that, but
the whole business of the guy, Jesus, like there's some dark shit there, man.
Yeah, but I mean, like you just said, like that sax solo, just the guy James Gordon, I guess, is the one who did the sax solo. Like, it sounds like something is being violated. Like, it's so good, man.
I know.
And I think it's kind of funny. Like, when Tarantino was thinking about using My Sharona for that scene, he said, dude, this is what he said, dude. My Sharona has a really good sodomy beat to it.
That is funny.
Like, I mean,
guess I never would have thought what that could be. But
I mean, I don't know. That's
I'm sure the knack is very happy to hear that.
They're just pumped, happier than pigs and shit. Speaking of pigs,
I don't eat
pork. What, you Jewish? You just don't dig on swine. Okay, cool.
Which is crazy, dude. If you don't eat pork, like, God, you're missing out on a lot of amazing shit. But
it is good. But
so I think the last thing really to talk about is Surf Rider on the end credits,
dude. And I love it. This is
we
gotta start with Surf, might as well end with it, right?
Yeah, but it's so melancholy and still kind of has a nice little ripping sax solo in it. Much like Comanche, but it's so melancholy and dreamy and kind of great song, great look, good drummer.
Yes, it is. It's very good.
So, dude, I got to ask you then, since, obviously we're not scratching this. We're talking about the songs that made the movie. What is your favorite one?
My favorite song? I'd have to match the song with the scene. I mean,
Well, then do it. Like, what's the?
I mean, well, the first one that comes to mind, and I mean, who the fuck likes really like credit sequences where nothing else is going on? Because really, the credit sequence here is just the titles, the names, and Miserlou playing. I think that might be my favorite, but then there's something about, I don't know, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon too. Okay, man.
Well, if you were to go with the first choice, we'd have to go into overtime, which I don't know if we're ready to do.
I don't think we are. We didn't prepare for that.
Yeah,
this is a whole new thing.
Yeah, I'd have to go with either, and that's what's so interesting because, like you said, you'd never think about that. But for me, it would either be the opening or the end credits because I like the song so much. It makes it where you're like, I don't really mind just watching the credits because like Surfrider really ties the room together, as they would say.
It does. Well, and the cool thing about that opening surf credits is
parlance of our times.
Is halfway through when you get the tuning and everything goes into Juggle Boogie, kind of breaks up the credits a little bit, so it keeps you going where you like you don't mind as much. So
that's true.
Yeah. So I'd go there, bro.
So I feel good about this first episode, and one thing I think that's good to note about it is. The whole idea is to talk about these movies that have scenes that you can't hear that song anymore and not associate it with the scene. Like you just, I could never hear Miserlou and not immediately think of Pulp Fiction. I mean, that'd be the first thing I'd think of.
Dude, absolutely. 100%. Well, Grim, I think we should, I want to leave our fans with one last thing though.
Oh.
And that is this.
Do tell.
You might know this. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and their tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness. For he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. It's time to go on the Dude and Grim Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by Moore and the Tims. Copyright 2021, The Dude and Grim Show.